Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, October 4th, 2022, and today we are going to be talking about Herschel Walker, Dr. Oz, and the infamous October surprise that plagues many political campaigns as they enter into the final stretch of the campaign season. Officially today, we are 5 weeks out until the November midterm elections, meaning that truly in 5 weeks we will know, or at least have a general idea of which party will be in control of the House and the United States Senate. But with this final stretch into the campaign, we have seen new things revealed as of last evening on both Dr. Oz and Herschel Walker in these highly competitive Senate races. On the front of Herschel Walker, he gets the most important story of the evening, the one that seems to be gaining the most traction across the United States, with a report from the Daily Beast where they found that Herschel Walker paid for his ex-girlfriend's abortion. They have receipts, they have his signature, they have evidence to back up these claims, and a lot of it is resulting in turmoil within the Walker campaign and even amongst his own family. Last evening, Herschel Walker's son, Christian Walker, revealed that Herschel Walker was an absent father, that he was out cheating with other women on Herschel Walker's wife, going around, having multiple children, and lying to the mainstream media about many things. Christian Walker went out so far as to say that every member of Walker's family said that they did not want him to pursue political office, saying that his past was going to catch up to him, and now is saying that Herschel Walker needs to stop lying. Christian Walker says he's done towing the party line. Christian Walker is a staunch Republican and someone who has become somewhat sort of a meme amongst Generation Z, who is also just so happens to be the son of the Republican nominee for U.S. Senate in Georgia. He has a lot of influence, not necessarily among swaying the Republican base, but definitely is important in this role. Even though he is someone who people don't exactly regard as the most serious or the most important when it comes down to this race, those turning on you within your own family is never a good sign, as Herschel Walker looks to seek November with this family man and core family values that the Republican Party has really tried to present him as such. And when they can't do that, and it looks like they probably cannot, Herschel Walker is more than likely going to tank in his campaign. This has just been revealed. We have not seen any polling data or any data relating to the incident. Really nothing has come out as a response besides the Republican Party frantically trying to come up with a response to these new allegations. Herschel Walker said that these things are not true. His son is saying that they are absolutely true. In fact, not only that, but there are many other things that he has done wrong and hidden from the press. This is the same son who went to his campaign rallies. This is the same person who was publicly supporting him and was someone who was a quite vocal advocate against father abandonment. This is not a good look for Herschel Walker, and it's certainly not a good look for Senate Republicans, in addition to the story that has just been revealed from Dr. Oz. If you follow John Fetterman on Twitter, you might have picked up about this story that is circulating around about the possibility that Dr. Oz's experiments killed over 300 dogs when he served his time as a medical researcher. Now, these claims are not nearly as front or mainstream as the ones about Herschel Walker, largely because this was done by a lesser-known publication and the validity of it is still up for concern, but it's still something that as a politician, you would obviously never want to be associated with. Just think about how well this would play in the hands of the quote-unquote enemy to the certain political party. In this case, the Democrats have already taken advantage of the story against Dr. Oz. These two things released yesterday, and people were frantic on social media, campaign managers scrambling to figure out what their response could be to this. Dr. Oz is fortunate enough to the extent that Herschel Walker's story has really dominated the mainstream media, but there still will be a picking up of the following story that we just talked about with Dr. Oz eventually throughout this campaign, and they need to be able to refute it. It might not be true. I'm not trying to show it to you as fact, but based off of what I've read, I don't see anything in response from the Oz campaign or even other publications that are discrediting this as a credible source. I don't think that this is something that will be the most important issue by any metric to voters in the state of Pennsylvania, but for someone who was already in a losing race, it can't help in terms of increasing your chance at victory. But Herschel Walker is the one that I would be mega concerned about if I was a Republican, because Republicans have been, quite frankly, counting on this race. Pennsylvania was drawn off as a Democratic victory for quite some time now, and while it has been walked back, today the Cook Political Report actually moved the state of Pennsylvania back into the toss-up column from what was lean Democrat. The polling numbers in Pennsylvania are not nearly as good for the Republican Party as they are in the state of Georgia. To give you context, the governor's race that is coinciding with both Pennsylvania and Georgia are very much more lopsided in the direction of the incumbent party. In Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro leads by about 11 points statewide. In Georgia, Brian Kemp leads by about 7. These are large victories, but the Senate races are narrower and considerably so when you look at the comparison of data. Georgia more so than Pennsylvania, because Georgia shows Raphael Warnock with about a 1-point lead across the state to Herschel Walker's 47.3% for Warnock to 46% for Herschel Walker. For a period of time, Walker actually maintained a lead over Warnock, and quite frankly, looking at a lot of the numbers that we see here, Herschel Walker isn't exactly in the worst position when it comes down to winning in the state of Georgia. He very well could do it, and it looked like for a period of time that he actually was the favorite to do so. In my estimations, Georgia has been a tilt blue state over the past 2 months. And I've stood by that, largely because I see Georgia as a state that is really going to be amongst the most competitive of this entire election cycle. Now, that isn't to say that I think that now. I definitely thought it before, but this story is definitely one that many people are viewing as a potential knockout for Herschel Walker. And I know we thought the same about Donald Trump when those comments were revealed 3 weeks before the election. But Herschel Walker is by no stretch of the imagination as good at shaping public narrative as Donald Trump was. Nobody is going to match Donald Trump in terms of media credibility, or not necessarily credibility, but the ability to shape stories in favor of themselves and blatantly, in some cases, mislead the American public about some things that were said. In addition to that, just looking at the circumstances of 2016, it's not exactly that Raphael Warnock is similar to Hillary Clinton. And even if he was, Hillary Clinton actually improved off of the last presidential margin from 2012 to 2016. If Warnock was to do that, he'd win the midterms. But just looking at Warnock as a candidate, he is exceptionally more popular than Herschel Walker, and exceptionally double over more popular than Hillary Clinton was at that point in time in 2016. 2016, in many regards, was viewed as a lesser of two evils situation. The Georgia Senate race, quite frankly, is not. And for those that are going to back Herschel Walker, I still very much expect him to get at least 46% of the vote. But I think there are on-the-fence voters that could be easily swayed, that were swayed in favor of Warnock when he was up against Loeffler back in 2021, that could be swayed to vote for him again. The problem for the GOP, if Warnock wins this seat, the next time Republicans can even have a chance at one seat in Georgia is 2026, and the next one for this seat in Georgia, 2028. This story is quite substantial and something that if I was a Republican would be extremely worried about. Because without Georgia, there is no pathway to the majority. Because if Georgia's going blue, Pennsylvania likely is too. But technically speaking, there are ways for Republicans to get around the state of Georgia. Let's say Democrats win the state and it's solid. Let's say Democrats win New Hampshire. Let's say Democrats win the state of Arizona, which again is not far out of the question. They win Colorado. What are we left with? Well, 49 safe Democratic seats. That means Democrats in this circumstance would only need Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, any of those four, and they already have the majority. Republicans, on the other hand, need to win these remaining competitive seats. They need to win North Carolina, which shouldn't be too much trouble, but recent data might indicate that it might be too much trouble. They need to hold on to Ohio. They need to hold on to Iowa. They need to hold on to Florida. They need to hold on to Wisconsin. And even then, it's down to Pennsylvania and Nevada, two states where Democrats have won recently or have an incumbent in the case of Nevada, that Republicans need to win. And based off of the numbers that we see and based off of what we will now talk about in Pennsylvania, there doesn't seem to be too much of a guarantee that Pennsylvania is going red. This Dr. Oz story, again, is something that I want to think about, something that I want to talk about, just because of the fact that it is a story. I don't think that this is going to become mainstream, because if it was going to be mainstream, it would have been already, but there's always the possibility. If this becomes an issue that is mainstream and front and center in the state of Pennsylvania, there is still a chance that Dr. Oz sees this and, responds to it negatively or just doesn't respond to it at all, and ultimately voters take it out against him when we reach the ballot box. Now, Dr. Oz is in an interesting position because right now he's losing in the state of Pennsylvania, and a lot of people expect him to lose. But if this was Dave McCormick or really any other type of notable Republican in the state of Pennsylvania, this race should be and would be likely Republican. But quite frankly, Dr. Oz is not that strong of a candidate. Looking at the numbers too in the state of Pennsylvania, I'm reminded exactly how close this race actually is going to be. Even though John Fetterman maintains about a 4-point lead, and in 2010 and 2016, Pat Toomey did well, especially better than Dr. Oz when it came down to polling data, I still am apprehensive about the ability for Fetterman to win. I don't think Dr. Oz gets 44% of the vote no matter what happens between now and November. Even if the story ends up being true, I don't think it's going to sway voters that much. But similar to the state of Georgia, I do think there are swing voters, the same swing voters that elected President Biden, that are going to swing back and forth between their support for the Democrats or the Republicans in the Pennsylvania Senate race, and it's going to be determined by a lot more factors, including a potential upcoming debate. The state of Pennsylvania is also one that does historically get more competitive in the final stretch of the campaign season. Take a look at 2016, for instance. From the months of August through September through October, Hillary Clinton pretty much maintained, for most of it, a pretty substantial lead across the state. But in the final 3 weeks, it narrowed up. And I made a point about saying this in my most recent video yesterday, talking about how inevitably, in most cases, when you see a race start to narrow up, it's because the close proximity to the election is there. And I think we should expect that in the state of Pennsylvania. Right now, we have about 8% of the vote undecided. All John Fetterman needs of that is about 25% of the undecided vote in order to win the election. But historically speaking, Republicans have actually had, in some cases, the upper hand of 80-20, or in extreme cases, 90-10. But Dr. Oz seems to be someone who comes with a lot of baggage, because right now John Fetterman is slamming him for more things than one. Not only is he not from the state of Pennsylvania, not only is he a TV personality who has made his fame and fortune off of selling fake diet pills, these are things that have been routinely attacked against Dr. Oz that are still being utilized. I think that the Fetterman campaign has ran a good campaign, but they have more up their sleeve, and I don't think this is the extent of what we can expect between now and November. These are undoubtedly October surprises, and people, in terms of their expectations in both of these races, have definitely responded to that in a way that shows that this was quite a surprise. In fact, before the abortion story dropped, Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock were tied when it came down to the overall betting markets. But you know what happened immediately following? The Democrats skyrocketed. They jumped up, and all the progress that Herschel Walker made over the past 3 weeks was reduced down to 42 cents for a yes share. Today, that's at 41 and even lower. Democrats yesterday were at 59. Today, they're at 61. And that's because of drama that's been happening and been weighing down Herschel Walker when he really needed consistent and prominent upward trajectory and upward mobility for himself. But quite frankly, he just couldn't get it. When it came down to Dr. Oz with his experience, when it came down to Dr. Oz and what we are seeing here, you don't see much of a shift. Again, voters don't seem to care as much in Pennsylvania as they did in Georgia for something that was, not to put it on a scale here. I don't know why I can say that correctly, but I think a lot of it is determined based off of how the mainstream media reacts to it. It doesn't look like they're too invested in the Dr. Oz case. Maybe that will be brought up when things start to die down on the front of the Georgia abortion story, but truly, there is more for the media in Georgia, less in Pennsylvania, and even though they are big stories, and I can expect Democrats to capitalize on it, you're not exactly seeing this dramatic surge in support for the Democrats or expectations relative to where they were yesterday. It was 62 cents, the day before 61. Today they're at 64. Yes, subtle increase, but nothing super significant. These races are going to be the most competitive, no matter what anybody says. They are going to be amongst the closest, and they are going to be the ones with the races to watch. Georgia, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Arizona, these are the main four most important races when it comes down to this election, and they are truly going to determine the balance of power. And to see these new things become revealed, it makes it a point where if both hold true, if both are proven to be credible, which it looks like the Daily Beast one is already on track to be proven so, if both hold and true to be credible, there is a chance again, that Democrats lock down Pennsylvania and Georgia, which makes it so Republicans need Arizona and Nevada in order to win the majority. Not just Nevada, but also Arizona. Because Pennsylvania, if it does go to John Fetterman, will be a pickup opportunity for the Democratic Party and a victory for them across the United States. Because Pennsylvania right now has a Republican senator, Senator Pat Toomey, and this is a race where it's going to be quite interesting, but at the same time, I look at it, I see it, and I recognize that we are in an environment significantly worse for Democrats than where they were previously, but at the same time, too, a lot of these things can be equally true. The Republicans simply have nominated the wrong people, and that is showing with these last-minute bumps and surges in opposition research against these top Republican nominees, which means there's a good chance that people use this against them and do not vote for them in these midterm elections, but also those who take this to heart may not have even been considering voting for them in the first place, which may mean that there may be little to no impact altogether. But I think Georgia, of all places, will have the most impact. Then, depending on the validity of the story in Pennsylvania, that will also have some type of impact, but I don't think there's going to be a landslide in anybody's future, Republican or Democrat, but still, pushback against certain politicians that could drive the Senate in a completely different direction than it otherwise might have gone. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 Senate election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.